What up, Black Asian Magazine? We out here. Pop, pop.
I make good sounds, so let your hood down and bring your hood round. Let's start the barbecue. We got 2 ounces something good.
大家好 What's up, y'all? My name is Irie Givens, otherwise known as Miles Iten, otherwise known as 樱木乐。现在我是成功大学的研究所学生。I am a Fulbright alumni for the Creative Industries Design Master's Program at National Chenggung University, but I am also a hip-hop artist and educator, and that's how I got to Taiwan. That's what I'm here to do. So I got you on the books, and I got you on the stage leaving them shook, so.
But we don't even want none of it, gon' run to your mama. Futurama, Nixon's head before we go to the drama. Comma for the you, the bomber, if this verse gon' ever blow up. Cause I'm bombing on this city till the hearse is gon' show up.
I was probably the only black student in the school I went to, a private K-12, from kindergarten to 8th grade, which I'm not really about to sit here and pity myself about it the whole time, but you know, you're definitely at a different income level than everybody else going, and you're from a different cultural background. I'm from Miami, Florida, and it was weird enough that a Northern Baptist missionary school was in the middle of horse country, Miami-Dade County. The whole vibe there, I feel like, was really built up on the veneer of Judeo-Christian values, but I don't think they were able to separate that from like their own cultural understanding. So a lot of when I'm coming up and they're like, nah, we don't want you to listen to devil's music, and then you go to the flip side and get it from your parent. My parents aren't, well, my mom wasn't born in the United States. She was from Jamaica. So I feel like a lot of times hip hop allowed me to embody my own idiosyncratic African American experience as someone who had to kind of like be integrated into what it means to be African American, because otherwise I'd have been Jamaican. I'm really only American by a week in a plane flight, to tell you the truth. The first artist that really inspired me on a deep level was Tupac. I was a preteen, and you can imagine this is what, early 2000s, streaming would have just started popping off. I don't gotta beg my mom for CD money no more. So once I was able to really delve into his content, I felt like it was everything that spoke to me being where I was at the time. You know, like, why is everybody, you know, looking at me and my cousins different walking down the street in, you know, the middle of Miami, where you being a minority is, you know, kind of expected. It's not the same as, like, you know, in New York or Cali, but you still touch on a lot of those same experiences. And I think in today's backpack circles, he doesn't get a lot of credit as a lyricist, but like, yo, that man knew how to choose words that spoke to your soul every time. Like, they reverberated every time he dropped it on the downbeat, so I was here for that. Everybody had a Wheezy phase, I don't care what they say. Best mixtape run of all time, I can't front on him. I was a huge fan of Jean Grey in the underground scene, shout out. And then I think there was a point where I tried to incorporate more more outside genre influences into how I make my music. I was very much into the idea of being this lyricist, this ill underground, like, I don't gotta conform my standards to make you hear the words I'm saying. Then I realized, like, okay, people actually like want to hear something aesthetically pleasant. So Sia was a big one for me. I Want to Swing from the Chandelier, Sia. The voice was impeccable to me, like it was so natural and raw and real. I'm talking like before we found out that her face actually was everywhere. For those of us who weren't on that side of the world, like when I heard of her, I saw she had like the wig going on, and she wanted to obscure everything that the vision of her would make you believe about her, and I was into that 100%. It was all about the emotion and the narrative that she was giving, the melodrama. Yes, I'm here for it all. I think for those same reasons, I was really into My Chemical Romance too, and even they're taking a big influence on, I think, the modern day landscape of new rappers coming out where they want to say, oh, emo rap is a thing now. And I think it has more to do with the lyrical and the sonic aesthetics of it too. It might not be the exact same, you know, drum lines that they're going for, but you really just have to touch that urban to suburban sense of dread. I think one thing that has wrapped around the concept of my work is faith. Alright, I kind of grew up in the church, you know. I think at maybe the halfway point in my childhood, we started really going for it a lot more. I was a youth minister at one point. That was cute. And then you leave the house, you go off, and you get to experience the world for yourself. And a lot of times you really start questioning everything else that raised you to make you you, because you realize there was this much more out there. But I think now I've been able to come around to a place where I can ground my art in my foundations rather than saying my foundation has to define my art. Kind of the same way I approach reading the Bible, where I think a lot of people try to make their lives fit a biblical experience, whereas I would look at it as a biblical experience should be able to describe your life, not define it. In undergrad, I went to a school called New College of Florida, liberal arts college. I was able to craft what they call our own tutorials, which is really our own classes. So you can work with a professor and you can make your own major if you wanted to, but you can assemble your own syllabus and follow your own charted course of learning, and as long as you have a supervisor willing to take you step by step, you can basically get college credit for studying what you want to study. I joined with the classics department, and we made a course called Freestyle Floor Tutorial, which is basically teaching students how to rap. At least that's how the advertisement went, but it followed up on, I think, a lot more than people expected. Like, they come to the class and be like, oh snap, I thought we were just gonna come in and kick it in, you know, eat shit with you for a whole hour and a half. And it's like, nah, we based it on real literary, or even, as it's called in our research, post-literary dynamics of how people compose hip-hop and the societal forces that control how people ingest hip-hop. By the time I graduated, I ended up writing my senior thesis on topics similar to how we constructed the class. I came to Taiwan on a Fulbright grant. I applied pretty much being open and upfront about what I did in my schooling, and I guess hip-hop was cool enough to bring me here. So I oriented my project now as a graduate student at Chenggung Dashi, the Creative Industries Design program. I used this opportunity to research how I can design this class for Taiwan's EFL learners.
Right now, Irie Givens lives in Tainan City, Taiwan, starting up lo-fi language learning, a hip-hop based English class for Taiwanese second language learners. Here, he uses the fundamentals of hip-hop to teach his 6th grade classes using some games about the nuances of English that second language learners might not always pick up on. In this game, he attaches the end rhyme of everybody's name, distributes them out, and tells them to go find the student with their name card in English. In every class, he emphasizes confidence in using their listening and comprehension skills. Here, for example, he introduces students to some culture, Class of 3000, a cartoon by Andre 3000 based on a fictional hip-hop class. And he teaches them definitions you might not find in the average textbook.
Come take a play and stay defined for sure. Already know.
By the end of class, even students who might not have felt confident writing their own name in English end up writing their first 4 bars.
Her nephew Ray bought the Ray and nephew, we ready to sit. And yo, on no petty shit. I know we can't play R. Kelly no more, but I'm trying to step in the name of love out here, David. Whoever on the aux, yo, you bet.
Anecdote. I had this conversation with my professor in undergrad again. Shout out Professor Zabriskie, who taught us a class on black social political thought. And she was one of my advisors when I presented my thesis. And when I was talking about the idea of cultural exchange and even cultural gentrification and how we sometimes as people feel like wow, everything that we have to build as African Americans to really show to the world just gets stolen and repurposed, and other people just make money off it, and it's not fair because look at your perception of us still. I said something like, okay, I see that, but when you take it outside the like, how much do you want to buy into the concept of white supremacy? We have to acknowledge it as an existent, but then how much do we want that to guide our focus? And then the line I said was, because real talk, I can't explain to you why the Wu-Tang Clan in itself is not appropriation. And she broke it down and said, well, if you think about it, there's appropriation in the sense that there's a capital aspect of it that we're not looking at. Cultural capital, even, to say, all right, here's what is respected, here's what is respectable, here's what we allow you to make money off of, or what you might inspire in someone so they can go make money off of, we won't let you do it, versus cultural exchange, you know what I mean? Back in the day, Wu-Tang, all they had was, not all they had, but in terms of media and exposure, they managed to still find a not mainstream source of entertainment through these kung fu movies and these wildly dubbed VHS tapes of Enter the Shaolin, and incorporate that into, you know, their own art and made it this whole other cultural intersection that wasn't previously, I guess, harped upon in the scope of white supremacy, unless you're counting on like the model minority myth, which we really shouldn't be grouping, you know, Asian Americans into whiteness like that. So I think that when I see how hip-hop is taking form in Asia, in Asian countries, East Asian countries, I think it's been a natural progression of how a lot of these countries have had their middle class rise in the face of globalism, you know what I mean? Like in China, for example. China, for the longest while, most of it was a third world country. You know, we don't really think about that. So then when you see a lot of these kids come out here like kind of trapping now, you know what I mean? And saying they come from these real urbanized neighborhoods, they are now in these urban neighborhood blocks with exposure to media, you know, Great Firewall aside, and the ability to make media. What came out of that when it was African Americans in those positions, urban African Americans, rap, hip hop? You see it replicate somewhere else. It's like that story of the monkey washing the coconut in the ocean at some remote part of the land, and then once it was done the first time, you know, others somewhat pick up on that. And I think hip hop does embody that spirit. You don't need that much money to, you know, really do and engage in hip hop. You want to make a rock song, you got to buy all the instruments. You want to do hip hop, you got to have a voice, and you can hit something with your hand repetitively. And then it gets more and more complicated. So I think hip hop in these markets in East Asia has taken on its own characteristic, but still embodies, you know, a bit of that playfulness, youthfulness, rebellion. And I'll admit, sometimes it's hard. You walk around and you see just that, like, not giving a fuckness, and you be like, is that what you think blackness is? But then we have to realize, okay, this is a strength of what the people have come before us have imbued into hip-hop as a culture, that now it's global. Now it's seen as, you know, American before black American to a lot of people, if we're being honest about it. So, you know, something I might take personally as, you know, someone's side on blackness might just be seen as them trying to fit in, trying to be cool. So, we could talk about the amount of dreadlock weaves I've seen here, but honestly, I am glad to see the culture, you know, go about the way it has. And I think as long as we still elevate the people who are pushing the culture forward, Shout out to Lil Krake, Lilkrake. He's the most talented rapper, man, in Taiwan. Y'all should check his shit out. Shout out to Nasi, Nasi too. She's also out here bringing all that indigenous soul to you. It's people you do listen to and connect to and make you feel like, okay, it's still here. Like what I fell in love with back where I know it came from, I know that spirit has spread too. And once I know that, for sure, I'm cool on it. I think the state is a state of strength. Whether that's through longevity or actual sturdiness. I referenced earlier Tupac being the golden head on the statue. I was referring back to this biblical story in the Nebuchadnezzar's dream where he was revealed from God. It was revealed to him the status of his empire, and he was the golden head on top. And then as the declension shows, I'm imagining kind of like a movie where it's panning down and showing the rest of the statue. There's different materials making up bigger and longer parts of the body, but the materials all become less refined. So, you know, it goes from gold and, you know, go to silver, da-da-da. By the end, I think the feet are made of clay or a not precious metal. But the clay is the longest one. It's the biggest. And then that's how God tells him. It's like, your reign is going to be the shortest, but I'm going to be real with you. It's probably going to be the greatest it's ever seen. Or, you know, at least as far as you know. So live it up right now, and you might not feel like everything else is gonna be as golden, but hey, you're not gonna have long enough to really sit and ponder that, so get your shit together. And I relate that a lot to even how I look at the state of the culture today. Yeah, there might be points of oversaturation, but the fact that like it's here in the first place, like, yo, disco didn't make it this far, you know what I mean? So I think the state of the culture is one where we have to stop and respect what everybody has done for it to get here, and just uplift the people who we think are taking it in the right direction. Once we're there, and I think once we understand the power that the culture has taken in not only markets but minds abroad, I would say the state of the culture is stronger than ever, objectively. Subjectively, that's up to us to decide, but I can look at hip-hop and say, for the most part, I'm proud of the good that's been done in the name of it.
Heard my dog don't touch the swine no more. So grab a plate and stay divine for sure. Already know we got the kosher hello. Still got poking cookbobs, corn on the cobs, and we loaded with salt. And then the granny with it, cakes from the shop, they're off the 75th. Her nephew Ray bought the Ray, and nephew we ready to sip. Hey yo, and I know it's not cool to play R. Kelly no more, but I'm really trying to step in the name of love, damn it, here. So come on, baby, let's be the spot today. I finally found some faith up on my block today. Hey, hey. That's all we have for you today. Thanks for coming to Black Asian Magazine. This has been Irie Givens. I've had a great time with you guys tonight. I'd like to give my shout outs now. Shout out to Queen Ultima, who's off camera in the screen. I make good sound, so let your hood down and bring your hood round. Let's start the barbecue. We got Queen _Ultima. You can also follow me, Irie_Givens. Shout out to Nankito, Lil Krake, Nasi, Poman, yo, Baldy, you already know what it is. Shout out to Rika out there Washington DC. Shout out to the colonizers who gave me this accent. Shout out to my family then. Shout out to all the people that have jump rock, boop, boop, you know what it is. And keep making dope things. This is Irie Givens, highly living. Came from the floor, rise to the ceiling. Enjoy how you feel. Goodbye.